T-Dog, J-Boy, and me, I'm Lugs. Our pride and joy is pumping our mugs. Be careful, kids, it could get rough. We're flipping our lids on sports and other stuff.
Welcome to Sport Weasel Central. I'm Lugs.
I'm J-Boy.
And I'm T-Dog.
Yes, sir. Here we go. Super Wild Card Weekend. Love that name. Is in the books. Were there any surprises? The divisional round is next, and we'll break both those things down for you. Good to see you, boys. So for starters, have we seen the last of Tom Brady as a Buccaneer, or do we really even care anymore? Lugs, what do you think? How are you tonight?
Oh, I'm well, and so is Brady. He had one of those chicken manure shakes or whatever's keeping him alive. Anyway.
What?
No,
Chicken
we have not seen the last of Tom Brady. He's not going to walk away with what just happened. That was a beat down. Of course, Brady didn't have any weapons, but if we're going to guess, I would say he'll end up at Miami. He'll sign a one-year deal at Miami. They could be competitive. Or he might, I think Miami more so because of his kids being in Florida. But I think if I had my druthers and I were Tom Brady, I'd go to San Francisco for a year. But, he's coming back. He has to.
San Francisco doesn't want him. T-Dog, what do you think? What? San Francisco?
We're going to start on talking about Tom Brady, and I'll get into the game just real quickly after that. Tom Brady, Tom Brady, he'll probably come back, but let's be honest. In that game against Cowboys, he looked unsure the whole game. He was double and triple clutching on multiple plays. That INT that he threw was bad. And I was also second down. So he could have just thrown it out of the back of the end zone, eat it, and they would have had another shot at the end zone. And he just threw up a lollipop to the back of the end zone that Jerron Curse picked off. So, his touchdown to Julio Jones shows that he can still throw it. But, guys, he's lost his pocket mobility. And, I'm not killing him at 45 and going on 46 next year. His desire to take a hit is not there. I kind of like what J-Boy says. Why would the 49ers want to be with it? They already have Trey Lance still under contract for another 2 years. Yeah. And I know Lugs is going to say, well, who cares about that? Well, they have him for 2 more years. Maybe he turns into something. Obviously, Brock Purdy turned into something
an overnight success
for Mr. Irrelevant. So, and we'll get into that game too. Like, he has a lot of the pieces you want. He maybe is missing one aspect that, again, we can get into it later, but like, I don't see them adding another name to the San Francisco 49ers. And the main reason they're able to do this is they don't have a quarterback whose contract is too ballooned. And obviously Brady will be willing to work at a reduced price, but he's not going to work pro bono. So,
man, I think Father Time, as we know, is undefeated, and he's finally going to catch up to old Tom. That's my theory.
I think last night kind of showed it.
Well, I still wouldn't count him out, boys. I'd still put him in the top 10 of quarterbacks in the NFL right now, even at this age.
Wow. No. And I think that ball, the Curse, that interception by Curse.
Wait a minute. You boys keep backing Kirk Cousins, and he can't even throw out of his own back pocket.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Just time out for a minute.
Seriously.
Cousins had one of his best games of the year. It was you can't give up 31 points and win a playoff game. End of discussion on that one. That's my theory.
Well, you got to have a first down, and you throw a 3-yard pass. Come on.
Shouldn't have gotten that far. Shouldn't have been in that problem. Shouldn't have been in that case.
I'm just saying Stetson Bennett would have had more sense
I like
than that.
Stetson Bennett.
And he's a walk-on monkey.
Monkey.
Jeez.
Wait a minute.
This is getting out of control. Let's
right,
write it in.
help me,
Let's
help
write it in. Let's write it in.
Woo, give it back. Walk it
Let's
back.
start from the beginning.
Walk it
NFL
back.
playoffs.
Yeah, please. Let's start with
Well,
Go ahead.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, because this thing's
I'm all
going out.
befuddled
I don't know where this is going. We've gone off the road.
Recap of the Super Wild Card Weekend. Go.
We're at a Sunco gas station in the middle of nowhere, trying to get us back on
US Highway 1.
I-71.
Yes.
But we got an SO map.
Yeah.
So.
So let's start off.
Rand McNally. I prefer those.
Lugs, what was your takes on let's start with the 49ers Seahawks game and then the Jaguars Chargers game from Saturday.
Well, I think the Seahawks, they showed well, but they showed to be what they are. And you just can't. Right now, I'm telling you, 49ers are going to take the Super Bowl, even with Brock Purdy.
Interesting.
I mean, they're just that skilled and talented. Their offensive guys now are healthy, and their defense. I saw a stat on the 49ers that said every team that played them this year lost the game after they played them. So that says those boys are putting a hurting on people. So Geno Smith, he had some moments, but I don't think he is the guy for Seattle. I just don't.
Placeholder?
Sorry. I mean, he'll be there next year because they need to get themselves a quarterback. But so that's my take. It's Brock Purdy had some decent throws. He looked to me at the start of that game, he looked like the rookie guy. You know, he was tight and he was forcing some things, but he settled down.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of that game, we've talked about it for a few weeks now. The 49ers offense has been humming like the last month of the season.
Yep.
And, he did play in week 18, but in this wildcard game, they unleashed Debo, who's been missing for a while. And what did he give him? He gave him 133 yards receiving, a touchdown, 32 yards rushing in playoffs. Guys, I'm not exaggerating in my lifetime. I'm sure there is a team that maybe I'm forgetting. This is the most loaded skill position team that I can remember after that McCaffrey trade. I'll give Seahawks credit. They actually played them tough for 3 quarters. I mean, they were in that game and they were driving to possibly, I believe, take the lead or tie it. But the Amenahu strip sack and then Nick Bosa recovering, that's when the dam kind of broke. And you do see that if there's one weakness of the 49ers, you can throw on them deep because Metcalf had a huge game. He had 136 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. And that touchdown to put them up 14-13 was just a beautiful deep ball by Geno. And that's why I don't agree with Luggs. I'm not saying he's their long-term answer, but he's probably at least their answer for the next 2 to 3 years. He's played too well, man. He's played too well. And even in that game, he did not play bad. And, you could say he came up short. But again, the 49ers are possibly, one of the top defenses left in the playoffs. Brock Purdy, I just want to say, he's no longer just a great story. I mean, he uses his legs, makes quick decisions, and can improvise to create. The one problem that I see where maybe he's not the long-term starter is on a lot of those throws, you can tell the arm strength isn't there. But other than that, he is Shanahan's wet dream, the way he plays that game. And the last guy I just want to single out is, even though his statistics aren't great, Brandon Ayuk, and again, this goes back to the versatility of this team, where he's a great receiver, but he can block, is on the 2 biggest plays by the 49ers, the McCaffrey 68-yard run and the 74-yard passing touchdown to Debo. Ayuk absolutely scraped people out of those plays that allow them to burst forward. So, that's the thing. It's just the versatility of all these skill guys. So,
and even Kittle was making some blocks on plays. That one Debo run early on, he slammed the guy to the ground.
It's so I don't know. They are going to be I think they're the scariest team in the NFC. So.
For sure.
Completely agree.
Agreed.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So
What's your
Your
next
all's-
pick? Your next pick, next game.
Your all's takes on Jaguars Chargers.
Oh, my favorite game of the weekend, man. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, true.
I mean, uh, what did he drop? 3 interceptions in the first quarter. I was just like, oh my God, he's melting down. For this game alone, Doug Peterson should be coach of the year. To watch those guys come back, you had to have a steadying influence. And the plays that he called in the second half were right on time. And then I got to say, Trey Lawrence redeemed himself for one audible, that audible where, I mean, there's nobody around that receiver. I've forgotten the receiver's name, but it was perfect. It was perfect. And for them to come back was amazing. And by the way, they being the Chargers, fired Joe Lombardi, their offensive coordinator. I don't think the offense was the problem. I think the defense was the problem, and that's Brandon Staley. So I think they need to get rid of Staley, get Sean Payton. Let's all go home and sing Kumbaya.
Wow, Chargers. Yes, you're right. You think Brandon Staley's out?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, they got rid of the quarterback's coach and the offensive coordinator. I mean, that wasn't the problem to me. They were able to do some stuff. They just weren't able to stop the Jaguars.
Go ahead.
Look. Yes, there are definitely some big warts on Brandon Staley. What he did in this game. I mean, they had a 27-0 lead, built on 4 INTs and a special teams fumble. So actually, and I believe the Chargers didn't turn the ball over at all. So to lose a game where you had 5 turnovers, -5 turnovers, is actually a great accomplishment for Jags and absolutely abysmal for the Chargers. But the main problem was, besides their defense, choking in the second half to a degree, their offense for the whole game was relatively poor, except for Gerald Everett. He had 106 yards and a touchdown. Herbert, who I still think is one of the top 5 quarterbacks, definitely one of those 10 that are in front of Brady. He had 237 yards passing, a touchdown, 12 yards rushing. But when they were up 24-0, after that special teams fumble recovery, they had an opportunity to throw a touchdown on 3rd down, and Keenan Allen was wide open in the end zone, and he overthrew him. He was wide open, and they had to settle for a field goal. So, I mean, you look at how these things kind of shake out.
I will agree. They were within the 10-yard line or closer for a couple of times, and they blew it each time. That I agree with.
And again, I'm not going to really put this on because he is so versatile and so important to him. But Austin Eckler behind that offensive line, he's not going to get a lot of push. I believe they only ran the ball 8 times in the second half. And again, none of us are like old rockheads who were saying just pound the rock, pound the rock, pound the rock. It's just offenses have to be balanced. And you also just once you have a lead that big, you have to try to use the clock. Particularly, you're not trying to hide your quarterback. I mean, Herbert can run. They should have tried to get Herbert on some runs more. But anyway, I want to focus now on the team that won. I think the cool thing about this win for the Jaguars is all their offseason acquisitions, they came to play. Their wide receivers and tight ends that they all brought in. Ingram, Evan Ingram, he's an emerging, possible, honestly, Travis Kelce type. If you look at his numbers over the last few weeks when Trevor Lawrence, the light went on, he had 93 yards receiving and a touchdown. Christian Kirk, who they brought in that huge contract, he had 78 yards receiving and a touchdown. And Zay Jones, that gives him 3 receivers that are, reliable on the outside in the slot, and it gives him multiple safety blankets. And to go back to what Lug said, Zay Jones was a guy on the deep pass who just was wide open. And Zay Jones, again, I know he didn't make as much money as Christian Kirk. He's been a big acquisition for them. And just as poor as Trevor Lawrence started the year, and you could almost make it a microcosm of his first 2 years in the league. That first year was abysmal, but the second half was essentially like what this Trevor Lawrence has been this season. He didn't get rattled. he kept peppering his targets. He slowly chipped away. Yeah. And, his first touchdown to Ingram showed just how good his touch has developed. The third touchdown to Zay Jones showed you how good he is at hitting that deep ball. And that second and fourth touchdowns of Marvin Jones and Christian Kirk just shows you how much he could just put some torque and velocity on it when he needs to throw it into a tight window.
Plus, they were behind 27-0 early in the game.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a heck of a comeback.
And my undying respect to Trevor Lawrence for his post-game meal. He went to Waffle House. So,
Waffle House.
Love it. The last one where I just want to give Doug Peterson credit is on that 4th and 1 to give the death blow to the Chargers.
Yeah.
For them to trot out essentially like a modified wishbone. Is that what you would call it? I mean, there were 3 running backs in the backfield. And
it was at least the veer.
Yeah,
you had the old veer.
Oh, the
veer.
The
two running backs just essentially just run straight into the line to just like smash guys. And then Zay Jones was the only wide receiver. He smashed in to essentially seal that edge. And with Etienne's speed, he got to the outside and was able to get even more yardage to get them in field goal position. So I just want to say that was a hell of a play to call in such a critical spot. So, but again, credit to Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. Again, I think, Herbert will be here multiple times. Brandon Staley, I think he gets one more year, but again, if I was Sean Payton, I would just stay in TV for one more year. This job is probably going to possibly come open next year. Don't take any of these other jobs where I think they're a mess. Like, again, he sees how special Herbert is. That thing's going to come open.
So can Doug Peterson beat Andy Reid? That'll be the question we'll answer here in a few moments. But next game, Bills, Dolphins. That was a heck of a game,
I was proud of the Dolphins. I mean, you're playing with a quarterback who essentially was on the practice squad.
Yeah.
And, they made it competitive. It's one of those moments where you're just like, I'm verklempt almost at how bad Buffalo has regressed. I mean, what is going on with Josh Allen? I just couldn't believe some of the stuff he was doing. I just couldn't. But hats off to Mike McDaniel. I tell you, behind Peterson, in my estimation, he is coach of the year for just being able to get through all that happened with Tua, Teddy, all of that. So hats off to the Dolphins. Now when they get Brady, they'll be competitive.
They get Brady. The old man in the sea comes down to Miami. Takes
it's a warm climate. He can put his liniment on.
That horse liniment they sell down at Churchill Downs, right?
I'll just say I mainly want to give credit to the Dolphins defense. They're the ones that made this a game. 17 of their 30 points were set up by turnovers. They had 7 sacks, 13 QB hits, 2 INTs, and a fumble recovery. Particularly Zach Seiler, he had 2 sacks, 4 QB hits, a fumble recovery, and the touchdown to give him 24-20 lead. Again, this also is compounded by Josh Allen. If you kind of look at parts of this back half of the season, he has been up and down all year.
Yeah.
Just being kind of careless with the ball. And I mean, his first touchdown to Knox was a precision bullet. He hit a bucket throw to Gabe Davis. But his Xavier Howard INT was a misfire. I mean, he got strip sacked for that Dolphins 24-20 lead. And again, this isn't completely on him. That O-line is just an absolute mess. Because like I said, Zach Seiler had a career day. Zach Seiler, I think, is a solid guy. I don't think he's a guy who should be wrecking your game plans. So that's what I'm worried about them for next week. But I think the thing that really stinks for the Dolphins is, and obviously he had guys drop the ball, but Skylar Thompson was a mess. I mean, he was 18 for 45. The reason a game that did not go into overtime was so long is because he completed like 40% of his passes. That's why. And also just the ball looked wobbly, so I can understand why some of those weren't caught. It's just I don't think they were. It's harder to catch a ball when it's not a spiral. And on that last drive, they had like a 4th and 1, and he couldn't get the play in. So there was a delay of game, and then it got to 4th and 6, and they weren't able to convert. And again, I'm not completely putting this on him. And I agree with Lugs that Mike McDaniels is a very talented coach and deserves accolades. But again, if I'm going to kill Bill Belichick for the whole situation with Matt Patricia being offense coordinator, I'm going to put some on Mike McDaniels. He should have seen from even last week, Skylar Thompson shouldn't have been starting. I know if Teddy Bridgewater can't play, do like the Titans, bring in like Josh Dobbs, who for a guy off the street, even in those losses, actually played well against Dallas and the Jaguars. So like bring in someone who you think can be competent. Skylar Thompson's too green. I'm not, like I said, I'm not killing Skylar Thompson. He's put in a situation he was not going to probably
Done
win.
his best. Yep.
And the other guy that really killed them that they didn't have, is that they had Raheem Mostert. If you look at like how explosive he could be, if they just had one running back who could just like burst off some gashes, I think maybe they win that close game.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Talking about the guy who had some rushes. How about your boy Daniel Jones?
Sets a record. Sets an NFL record.
I mean, here's a guy that I will say I had written off as just a sort of a quasi pretty boy from the Duke land.
Yeah.
But I got to give it to them. Of course, we all know my feelings about Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
And I knew going into this game, this was a good weekend. I should have bet the parlay. I don't even know what that means, but I should have bet the parlay because I had 5 of 6 games.
I got a parlay with extra cheese over here.
Brady did me wrong, but in this game, it was fun to watch. I mean, they were just beating each other up. I mean, it is the playoffs, so you expect that people just to say, hell, I'm going for this. I got all off season to heal up. But anyway, Daniel Jones was impressive to me in this game in particular.
I think the Giants are a scary team, dangerous team going forward. Look out, Eagles. What do you say, T-Dog?
I think this game really came down to just both these teams have pretty much the same problem. Is just their defense of both these teams, particularly in the secondaries, just aren't where they need to be. And I think both those teams, even at the beginning of the year, realized that. They try to cover it with the zone play for the most part. But Saquon, he's been dying to be in the playoffs, and he showed up. I mean, he had 53 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 56 yards receiving. His first one, a 28-yard touchdown, just a great, pulling offensive linemen, scraped some Vikings out of the way, and he looked like he was shot out of a cannon to tie the game up 7-7.
Yeah, it looked like he was back at Penn State, man. It's the healthiest I've seen him.
And then to show another aspect of him that's really, again, just how multifaceted in terms of his talents are. His second touchdown to give them the 31-24 lead, he just outmuscled Dalvin Tomlinson, who's a D tackle. This guy who's 300 pounds. He had him on his back, and he rode him in 3 yards.
Impressive.
So,
yep.
But the guy of the game was definitely Daniel Jones, who, to make you possibly feel better, Lugs, I also, when he was drafted, I was like, this is an overreach. And the funny thing is, people say, like, Dave Gettleman, see, this proves Dave Gettleman right. And he drafted Andrew Thomas. And I will give credit to Dave Gettleman. He did draft these guys. The part where I will knock back against the Dave Gettleman thing, he did not hire Brian Daboll.
Right.
Brian Daboll is the guy
key
that allowed these guys to be molded. And this is why, to me, he is the coach of the year. Is he took a team, when you really look at roster-wise, shouldn't have gotten to the playoffs, and not only are in the playoffs, but are kind of dangerous.
I agree.
So and a lot of it comes down to being able to use Daniel Jones's ability to run. And, obviously they let it kind of marinate until he got more comfortable with the offense and also with some of the receivers to allow him to start passing more. And, he was constantly connecting with Isaiah Hodgins and Darius Slayton. And again, the reason he was doing it is kind of harping on the one thing. The Vikings' weakness all year was, if you look at a lot of those passing plays, Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton were wide open. They could have ended the game in regulation. Darius Slayton dropped the ball, because if he caught that ball, He was
Yeah.
getting, it was like a 3rd and 15. He was going to get it. And like how there was no one around him, I don't know. But anyway, and I to split the difference between you all is Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins played well. I said before the game, and it ended up happening. This doesn't always happen because, like I said, I'll eat crow on the Daniel Jones thing. Kirk Cousins, for the most part, all year did play well, but I will agree with Lugs on this. On the 4th and 8,
Yep.
you have KJ Osborne. It appeared, even though he had a step on a guy beyond the line of scrimmage, why you're throwing it short to TJ Hawkinson with a guy riding on his back, I have no idea.
Yep.
But I'm not going to kill him because, like I said, I don't think if we're going to call out the scapegoat for this Vikings loss, it's the secondary, where they're going to have to revamp the people on the team and also probably even a new position coach. Because it was the main thing that killed them in big spots all year. And also the other thing that hurt them too was even though maybe the sacks weren't high, Kirk Cousins was hit 11 times, and Dexter Lawrence, even with Bradbury back, Dexter Lawrence was just wrecking things. He had 4 by himself. So,
And I got to agree with you. Brian Daboll, of the rookie head coaches this year, he's the guy, man, over Kevin O'Connell, Vikes, Eberflus, obviously with the Bears, and others I'm forgetting. But Daboll was the one that got away from the rest of them. And, for now anyway, rookie year, could have a sophomore jinx coming, but he's done a heck of a job, should be coach of the year in some aspect. If there's a rookie coach of the year, he's the guy.
yeah, I think he's overall just coach of the year for what he inherited. I think it's special what he did.
2 more games to talk about. Over in the AFC, we got the Bengals squeaking over the Ravens, but it was a good game nonetheless for Joe Burrow and the boys.
And again, you had a 3rd-string quarterback who played pretty well, and come down to the end of the game. I mean, they were one hand away from that Hail Mary being successful. I know, coulda, shoulda, woulda, and all that, but I don't know about the Bengals going forward. They've lost 3 offensive linemen.
Yeah, that's kind of scary for Joe. You're right.
Of an offensive line that was an improvement from last year, but isn't the greatest to begin with. So, but in that game, I was impressed with the Ravens being able to hang around. They did just enough to hang around. Joe Burrow did what Joe Burrow should have. But just sidebar here, Lamar Jackson has played his last snap for the Ravens. He's done that. He's done. I think you'll see him somewhere else, maybe the Jets next year. So that's my wild prediction for this moment.
He's not going to Miami with
What do
Brady?
you think? No. What do you think, dog?
I think the offense by the Bengals that has been red hot for most of the year, it was wrangled for a few reasons. Number one, Baltimore has a 3rd-ranked scoring defense, allowing 18.5 points a game. Number 2, Baltimore's offense controlled the clock and only allowed the Bengals to execute 40 plays. And number 3, what you kind of hit on, Jonah Williams left with a knee injury, so that's their left tackle, and they're down now him, the right tackle, La'el Collins, and then right guard Kappa. But, Joe Burrow, you look at his numbers, they're not sexy at all. I mean, 209 yards passing, touchdown, 9 yards rushing, touchdown. But he was effective with the little opportunity he was given. He managed a game where his defense was playing well also and just recognized the deficiencies of his line. So he just didn't do anything dumb. Obviously he has Jamar Chase to lean on, which is never bad, just peppering him with passes, even though his yards per catch aren't great. He did it because, again, he could move the sticks. He was using Jamar Chase as a chain mover because Baltimore wasn't going to allow the big play. And this is the difference between the Bengals of last year and this year. If you're going to take away the big play, it'll be a slow death for you. They're not going to try to push the issue. They're going to take what's given to them. Going to Tyler Huntley now. Tyler Huntley played well as good as a second stringer. I think put in the situation he was put into could do. The only problem is his 2 turnovers were bad, like really, truly bad. His first INT was in double coverage to Mark Andrews, and that led to the touchdown to Jamar Chase to put the Bengals up 9 to I believe, I don't know if it was 9-3 or whatever at the time, but or I think they were up 9-0, and then obviously the big one is the turning point of the whole game was the long drive by the Ravens, and then Tyler Huntley from like the 2nd-yard line tried to overextend the ball over the offensive line, and Logan Wilson stripped it, and then Sam Hubbard picked it up before it even hit the ground, ran it back 98 yards for a touchdown. I mean, that was a 14-point turnover, 14 points off turnovers by the Bengals. So, like I said, I'm not killing Tyler Huntley. Like I said, overall, I thought he played well. Again, like he's a guy, like we always kind of talk about, weirdly, a lot of backup quarterbacks that should be in the league for a long time. Tyler Huntley's definitely of that ilk. But just these are the reasons why some of these guys are backups. Is just they just make these big mistakes. And like I said, I think Burrow recognized it, and that's why Burrow didn't do anything drastic. He just played a fairly game managery game because he knew he didn't have to do anything stupid.
Yeah. Well, and that Tyler Huntley jump for the end zone, you got to give that to a running back. Fake it, hit the tight end in the flat, whatever. That's not his call. But when you look at that play, he's got that thing just in his fingertips on the tip of the ball. That's like just it was like he was handing off to the guy who smacked it.
Yeah, I mean, Wilson.
It was just like, dude, you can't. This is professional football here. We're getting paid here. So
it's not a pickup game. This is not flag football. It's a real game.
And some of it's on him too. Also, just when they had an opportunity to possibly tie or win at the end of the game, their 2-minute offense, to say it as succinctly as possible, was awful.
Sucked.
And so to have as much time as they had and to like get in a huddle with like 1:15 to go is like, what's going on here? And like I said, I'm going to kill Tyler Huntley a little bit on that. But again, I'm going to kill the coaching staff too. How the offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, allowed that. How they allowed the game to end with the timeout not used. I put that on Harbaugh. So I just want to say, like, a well-run team, a well-run organization had a huge brain fart at the end of the game by Baltimore.
Yeah.
All right. Cowboys, Buccaneers, we've kind of beat up on old Uncle Tom Brady there for a bit. But let's talk about Dak. Let's talk about that was the Cowboys' first road playoff win since 1992. And, Brett Maher misses a record 4 extra points. How did that happen? What do you think of that? Dak in the future. I think the Cowboys are kind of scary and dangerous. What do you say, Lugs?
Well, I think they had themselves a good game, and he had himself a good game. That kicker, I don't know that he'll be around for the San Francisco game. I just don't. I mean, they may bring out somebody out of retirement. I mean, he completely missed and then doinked one. You know, it was just, it was like left, right, left. It was crazy.
Where's Gary Anderson when you need him, or one of those old, Grammatica and those guys? Where are those guys? We need them.
Yeah, they're having a drink down at the bar probably. But Dak had himself a good game. It was impressive, and he finally, he's not rushing it. I thought in some of those games that I saw, he was like pushing. It was like he finally settled in, waited for his second and even third reads before he committed anything. So that was impressive. Now, we'll get to it, but I think it's going to be a different story when they play San Francisco.
I think the thing that makes the Cowboys scary is, I know he's been kind of up and down to some extent. And I'm not even going to kill him on the Washington game. They had nothing really to play for. I mean, anyone who looked too much at that game, like that wasn't the reason. I think, I thought the Bucs were going to win mainly because I was worried about the offensive line of the Cowboys and also their secondary outside of Diggs. And those didn't really end up being situations to worry about. But, Yeah, Dak was just locked in, and I think again, we're not really talk about Brady because we already did. To really talk about the other part of the Bucks that really let him down. That secondary was just undisciplined. He hit Dalton Schultz for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns because it seemed like Tampa couldn't see him. I mean, Schultz was just running free. On that second touchdown, there was 2 Tampa DBs around him, and he just was able to like split the difference and jump up between them. It was like, how's no one covering him? And then the other thing I like about them, the big reason for their record is they've stayed balanced. They threw the ball 33 times. They rushed it 35 times. The numbers aren't sexy, but Tony Pollard ran for 77 yards and had 12 receiving. And, that just allows them to keep the defense honest is the balance. And then the last aspect that really makes Dallas dangerous is, not shockingly, Micah Parsons. He had 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 2 pass defenses, 2 QB hits. I mean, guys, he was everywhere on the field. And that's the thing is when they have that dynamic of a piece that can move around like that, there's no team that can really stop him because they'll just move him to a different spot if you can come up with an idea. So they always have that movable chess piece in Micah Parsons. And, they're going to be scary. I think they have a shot against the 49ers. Now, I'm not, we could do that. We're probably going to do the, predictions here pretty shortly. Yep. But I just want to say, I don't want to completely poo-poo Tom Brady. Obviously, his run with the Bucks overall was a success. He won a Super Bowl.
Sure.
They made the playoffs his last 2 years with them, and but I will say the last thing is I'm just glad this Bucks team is put out of pasture. This year's team, not the ones from the last 2 years, but this team was dreadful. They only got in because that South Division was so awful, and I'm glad the Cowboys took them out back and just buried them.
All right, good point. Yep, it's Tommy's second act is pretty good to go in somewhere else and win a Super Bowl and still also win the division 2 years in a row. For Tampa Bay, that's a big deal. All right, so Lugs, let's do a little sports of yesteryear, and then we'll do our predictions for the big divisional weekend. You ready?
All right.
Here we go. It's sports of yesteryear. Going way, way back in that Ford Falcon that he drives on Tuesdays. So today's Tuesday, so he's in the Falcon. What do you got, Lugs? Bring it in here. Bring it in.
All right. 1916, Rodman Wanamaker organizes a lunch to discuss forming a golfers association, later to be called the Professional Golfers Association, or PGA. 1952 NFL Draft. See if you know this name. Bill Wade, quarterback, University of Vanderbilt, #1 pick by Los Angeles Rams. Never heard of him. Okay, 1960, 10th NFL Pro Bowl. Western Conference beats the Eastern Conference 38-21. MVPs are Johnny Unitas of the Colts.
I've heard of him.
Quarterback, and Eugene Lipscomb, Baltimore Colts defensive end. 1971, Super Bowl V, Orange Bowl. Again, the Baltimore Colts beat Dallas Cowboys 16-13. The MVP on the losing Cowboys team is Chuck Howley, a linebacker. When's the last time a defensive player won MVP in the Super Bowl? I don't remember it.
Richard Dent, 1985, I think. Yep, go.
1993 NFC Championship at Candlestick Park. Dallas Cowboys beat the San Francisco 49ers 30-20. And this weekend, it could be deja vu all over again. Hey guys, that's it for this edition of Sports of Yesteryear.
Thank you, Lugs, for that fascinating report. Okay, who was the guy who was the Wade? Who's Wade, man? Who was that guy?
Bill Wade. He was the quarterback for the 1963 championship Chicago Bears. That's the Bill Wade.
That Bill Wade.
Yeah.
Man, I had no clue who that was.
Wow.
That Bill Wade. Yeah, he went to the Pro Bowl that year. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Bill Wade, ladies and
Who
gentlemen.
did he play? Y.A. Tittle?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Frank Gifford? I don't know.
Frank, are you there? Frank, come in. All right, we have the divisional round coming up. First game, Jaguars at Chiefs. Let me point this out real quick. Little statistics from our crack team. Over the past 10 years, home teams have gone 29-11 in the divisional round, which basically means we'll get an average of one upset per year. So, what do you think about the Jags at Chiefs? Lugs.
Well, you're not going to go against Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelsey. I'm sorry. The Jags, I love them. It's a Cinderella story, but they're not going to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to pound them. To me, it'll be like 35 to maybe 17 or 18.
And T-Dog, before you start, let me just point out this little factoid. Another thing just handed to me by our team. In his 24-year coaching career, Andy Reid is 28-5 coming off a bye, including all playoff games. 28-5.
I think that leans into what I'm going to say, but just the main thing I'll keep singing this guy's praises. Not that Mahomes needs it, so like I'll move the spotlight over a little bit. Chris Jones has elevated his game all year when they need big moments. Like every time they need a big stop or or need a turnover, this man provides it. He's been an absolute wrecking ball in the middle of the defense. And with Aaron Donald unfortunately being injured for a big part of it, he is currently this year's champion as the scariest guy in the middle of a D line coming at you. I just don't see how the Jags are going to stop him. And then, unfortunately, this poor guy got knocked out the last time they played the Jags. But Juju was on his way to having a big game. I think he's going to have a big game this week because for whatever reason, Jaguars do not stop the slot position. And I just think they're going to feast. And if you also think about it, we talked about earlier, Everett had a big game. Well, if they're allowing Everett, the tight end, to have a big game, who's gonna stop Kelsey? So it's the Chiefs.
All right, there's that game. Now, Doug Peterson, not only, he coached with Andy Reid, he also played for Andy Reid. So if there's one guy who might have a chance, it might be Douglas Peterson. We'll find out. All right, our second game going into the weekend. It's a big weekend. Let's see, what is that one? The Giants at Eagles. This is one everybody's looking forward to, I think. What do you think, Lugs? Do the G-men of New York have a chance?
Oh, I suppose they have a chance, but this is going to be what you think of an AFC North, a bloodbath. I mean, these guys are just going to beat each other to death. But I got to go. I'm going with Philadelphia. I think that Hurts' running capability will match up with Daniel Jones' running capability. And I think Hurts has a little bit better receiving core, by about this much. It's one of those. It'll come down to, I think, honestly, Philadelphia has to corral Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I kind of like build on what Lug said. It feels like if the Giants have a chance, this is going to have to be a big Saquon game. Like Saquon's going to have one of those all-time kind of performances for them to win. Because I think the pass rush, the Eagles are going to get after Daniel Jones. And, speaking of the difference in the receiver cores, the jewel of the Eagles receiver core, A.J. Brown, they gave up first-round draft pick and millions of dollars to get him. Currently, the top receiver for the Giants is Isaiah Hodgins, who I believe wasn't on the team in October. So there's a big discrepancy between these receiving cores. Not to take away from Isaiah Hodgins, he's played very well for them, and hopefully he's going to get a contract out of this. But I just think kind of like what you've hit on, like we saw with Minnesota, who unfortunately outside of Jefferson and T.J. Hawkinson still need some bigger pieces on receiver core to really maybe exploit the overall weaknesses of the Giants. I don't think the Eagles are going to have that problem with Brown and Smith and Goddard. I go Eagles.
Well, plus, if there's not an angrier or hungrier fan base than the Eagles, holy smokes. I mean, this means so much to that town, that city, that team. They hate the Giants. They hate them. Anything from New York they hate, but especially the G-men. I think no chance for the Giants. All right, we're
Well,
moving to Sunday.
there's not been any snows in Philadelphia, so they can't snowball Santa this time around.
But they could get the batteries out and start tossing those babies. I don't know.
Yeah.
Keep your D cells at home, folks. All right, Sunday we've got two games, of course. Bengals at Bills, the rematch of the Damar Hamlin game. Guys, what do you think of this one?
I think this will be the tightest one, honestly. I think they're equally matched. I'm going to have to go with Joe Burrow. I know I was late to get on the bandwagon, but I think I'm going to have to go with Joe Burrow. And I think that Cincinnati's defense is just well enough to get it done.
He's finally come around to the Joe Burrow fan club established August 2019. T-Dog, what do you think? I mean, by the way, there's some thought and speculation Hamlin may show up and make an appearance, which I think would bring the house down. What do you guys, T-Dog, what do you think?
I mean, obviously that would be a big factor, but you going back to what you said, based on I guess the numbers, there's usually a quarter where a team who's an underdog wins. If I'm going to bet on an underdog in any of these games, it's definitely the Bengals. Because again, kind of obviously he's much more talented than Tyler Huntley, but just like Tyler Huntley, Josh Allen has been very giving the ball away. And yes, erratic. I was gonna say how I wrote it out was Burrow's. I think Burrow's shrewd play will squeak by Allen's explosive but chaotic talent. I think that's the difference in the game. And also looking at those numbers that the offensive line gave up to the Dolphins, who have a lot of talent, but for the most part were kind of underperforming for, let's say, the talent they have. I'm not even going to really blame the talent. You look at the Bengals, they're opposite. They don't have maybe like a lot of stars, but those guys every week in, week out, like they're playing hungry and hard. And I just think if you're giving up 7 sacks to the Dolphins, I think it could be a long day for Josh Allen. So I'm going with the Bengals.
I'm with you. I think it's a nail biter there with Jim Nantz saying, hello, friends, and Romo going crazy. I think it'll be a nail biter on CBS. Final game to wrap up the weekend will be the Cowboys at the Niners. I think we know where we're going on this, but T-Dog or Lugs, what do you think? Niners all the way?
Yeah, I'm a Niners guy.
Dak runs out. The luck runs out for Dak Prescott.
Well, I just think the Niners on both sides of the ball, especially the defensive and offensive lines, for the Niners, they're going to dominate that line of scrimmage. They really are. And Purdy will do just enough. And what we haven't spoken about is Shanahan knows how to design plays to fit his talent. And so all he's asking Purdy to do is just be a little bit better than Jimmy Garoppolo. That's all he has to do, manage that game and give it off. I mean, come on. Debo, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle. It's like it's too much talent almost. It's almost nasty. So I'm going to go with San Francisco.
Well, plus it's going to come down to play calling, isn't it, T-Dog? I mean, and Shanahan rules on that, and he's going to give Purdy a handful of plays that'll just make a huge difference.
Well, I will give credit. Kellen Moore obviously had a great game plan against the Bucs, and Quinn is obviously a very great coordinator. But that being said, I just look at it as 49ers offense is so well designed, and like I said, skill talent wise, this is the most talented talent team I think I've ever seen. Their defense has the defensive player of the year in Nick Bosa. They have the best tandem of linebackers in Greenlaw and Warner. And their defensive coordinator, D'Amico Ryans, I would say he should be the top candidate for any head coaching job that's available. I mean, it's Niners. So
well, we'll see what happens. Those games are this weekend. Then we're down to only 4 teams with Championship Sunday a week after that. So, man, it is getting close and coming down to the wire. All right, fellas, other news and notes before we sign off on this edition of Sports and Other Stuff. Anything else?
I'm good.
Yeah. I just, I just want to say, I hope a few things. I hope whoever gets the offensive coordinator job for the Chargers actually throws the ball down the field. That was the problem. Is you have You have
It's kind of
Herbert
important,
has
isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, Herbert has this strong arm, and they were a dink and dunk offense. It's like, what the hell's going on? And also, just for a long time friend of the show, Jimmy Grice. I hope Matt Canada gets kicked out for the Steelers' offensive coordinator job, because I think just hearing from Pittsburgh fans, like, they cannot put up with one more year Matt Canada as offensive. And obviously, they have a lot of good pieces in place on that offense. I think if they have a coordinator who actually knows what he's doing, I think, maybe they could be a contender again in the North.
All right, friend of the show, Jimmy Grice. Salute to Jimmy. Howdy, Jimmy. All right. Lugs, anything else? Are we done on this edition of our program?
Oh, I'll make one last wild ass prediction.
Okay, we're ready.
Brian Flores to the Arizona Cardinals. He's one that can manage Kyler, because Flores won't put up with that nonsense. He'll just say, "Get your ass in here and watch game film, son." So that's my wild ass prediction.
I hope your wild ass prediction doesn't happen just because I like Brian Flores, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone at this point.
Oh, man, that's a good prediction.
Fair enough.
We'll see what happens with that. You've been wasting plenty of time here with sports and other stuff, brought to you in part by First National Bank. Come as you are, bank from your car at First National's convenient drive-through. There's a guy, he's always working there, though, and he's our guy. His name is
Fish. And since this week marks the birth in 1942 of the greatest, Muhammad Ali, Fish will be hosting a charity fundraiser for one of Ali's favorite causes, the Children's Peace Foundation. Available for auction will be a signed pair of boxing gloves, and get this, a crossbow from Ted Nugent, yes, that Ted Nugent, who is a big fan of Ali. Also, a history of the Andy Griffith Show, signed by Opie, Ron Howard, Denver Pyle, who played Briscoe Darling, Howard McNear, who played the Barber Floyd, and finally signed with The Rock from Howard Morris, who played Ernest T. Bass. How do you do, Mrs. Wiley? This charity auction will be run from 1 to 3 this Saturday. Join us.
Well, with any luck, we'll be back next week, too. We'll see what happens. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.